Who is in the Premier League title race? I'm going to break down the 4 sides who I think can win the Premier League title and get an assessment by the end of the video of what position each side will finish and what their strengths and weaknesses are going into a Premier League title race. The overview, I think all 4 sides who are currently 1st to 4th from Spurs, Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City can all win the Premier League title because ultimately all have got slight deficiencies in their squad. Obviously some have got more experience in terms of Man City, whereas Liverpool, Arsenal have got great forward lines and Spurs have just got this mixture of quality players that when they come back, they could surprise people, especially if City, Arsenal and Liverpool all take points off each other over the Christmas period. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below of who is in the Premier League title race. We're going to get it started with Liverpool. Now, I think from top to tail, they've got one of the best squads in the league, probably the 2nd best squad. We're talking a world-class forward in Mohamed Salah. I think he's the 3rd best player in the world, maybe 2nd. If you throw in De Bruyne, if you throw in Rodri, Haaland, Mbappe, he's better than Mbappe in my opinion. So you're looking at one of the best in the world, guiding your side on to being dangerous, being ruthless up front. He's scoring week in, week out, it seems. That isn't just where it finishes, because I think you could argue, Spurs' attack has got Son, has got Maddison, and deficiencies maybe at the back, or not the world-class keeper that Liverpool have got. But we're looking at Liverpool, they've got a world-class keeper, the best keeper in the world in Alisson. And then I think Virgil van Dijk's gone right under the radar for how good he's been. Obviously, last season he really struggled. It was his first full season after coming back from that horror injury in the Liverpool derby against Everton. So you're looking at Van Dijk coming back and being that kind of Rolls Royce of a sense back. He's having a Rio Ferdinand 2013 kind of season in him. And I think when you've got someone like Virgil van Dijk, you've got Alisson in goal, you've got Szoboszlai and McAllister in the middle, and Salah, of course, Nunes, Jota can all get goals. You've got a spine of a great Liverpool side. And then you've got Jurgen Klopp. Now, Jurgen Klopp knows how to win the Premier League title. I think there's definitely a part of him that would want Liverpool to win the Premier League title at Anfield with a fully packed crowd. The COVID League title was probably one of the worst ever won, and that's not me trying to wind up Liverpool fans in terms of the spectacle of the game, in terms of just the empty stadiums. It just felt like getting through it. It just felt like completing the season to get onto a brand new fresh one. And I'm sure Liverpool in this title race will see the credit of actually trying to win a league title with their fans on their side. And that is a massive factor as well. Going to Anfield is going to be hard. When City have to go there, Spurs, all these sides are in a Premier League title race with each other, and it comes down to 3, 4, 5 points like it is at the moment. Anfield's the hardest place to go out of the Emirates, the Etihad, and the new White Hart Lane. That's just the reality. So Liverpool have got this fear factor all the way through their side. They've got a fear factor at Anfield. And I do look at Liverpool, and I think if they beat Man City at the Etihad and cause even more pain to Guardiola after conceding 4 to a mid-table side in Chelsea, that is a massive statement. And Liverpool are the one bogey side. I'm not going to talk about Spurs and Man City. It's irrelevant. Liverpool have beaten City in Centurion seasons for City, in Champions League quarterfinals, in massive periods of Man City's success in the last 5 years. Liverpool have been the banana skin every day of the week. So if Liverpool go to the Etihad and then they go to Fulham, they play Sheffield United, they got Crystal Palace, they could be in kind of early December, which is where it gets real serious in the Premier League title race, with an unbelievable advantage over everyone else because they've beaten Man City, who are currently top of the table. So that's my analysis of Liverpool. Let's move on to Tottenham Hotspur. Now, Tottenham, out of the 4 sides, have got the worst bit of form. Obviously losing to Wolves, they're in a winning position for 95% of that game. Losing to Chelsea, playing that high line. There's now question marks about Ange Postecoglou's in-game management to kind of nullify the opposition and to limit chances when it isn't going your way. Can you be blowing sides out of the water all the time in games? No. And in the Premier League, you have to rest certain players, you have to sit back, you have to be a bit ugly. Even Guardiola, when he came in, honestly, there are points where Guardiola told Otamendi, told John Stones to pump it long. And Ange Postecoglou is going to have to get his head around turning his philosophy into an application in the Premier League that suits Spurs to get wins that might be a little bit more ugly. He might have to just change his philosophy by 5-10% now that Maddison's been injured, now that Mickey van der Ven's injured. And Spurs have got a difficult run as well. So actually, I'm doing this video. I think Spurs have got an outside chance of winning the Premier League. At the end of this video, we'll obviously break down what order I think they'll finish. Spurs have got Aston Villa at home, City away, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Forest away, and Everton at home. Now, if they get 80% wins in those games, they're serious contenders to win the Premier League, because it means injuries are not stopping this system of getting wins against really tough Forest side away. For them, Aston Villa at home, But, you know, the proof's in the pudding with some of these sides. If Spurs aren't resolute, aren't able to compete with Aston Villa's fantastic squad, or even West Ham, who could definitely cause an issue. That's a London derby that it goes a little bit underrated of how much they hate each other. If Spurs come out of that run of fixtures into the middle of December, spotless, grinding out wins like they have before the Mickey van de Ven injury, before the Maddison injury, then it says a lot about Ange Postecoglou. It says a lot about the quality of the squad. It says a lot about Son, because I think I talked about Mohamed Salah being a world-class forward. Son is as close to Salah as anyone else in the league in terms of that winger / striker role. You can come in from the left, you can mix it with Brennan Johnson and Richarlison and get those guys playing Kulusevski. A bit like with Salah kind of being the world-class player, making Nunes better, making Jota and Gakpo better. So Son is that talisman. When Van de Ven and Maddison are back, if they're looking at 3, 4, 5 points off the top of the table, that is a boost in its own right. And Spurs every now and then might go into the January transfer market. So that is Tottenham Hotspur. The run of fixtures is probably the hardest out of the four that I'm going to talk about in this video. But you never know in football that Ange Postecoglou might get a tune out of Brennan Johnson. He scores 3, 4, 5 games out of nothing. Don't forget, Mickey van de Ven and Maddison are brand new signings, and Ange Postecoglou's put an arm around them, made them confident. Maddison was not a confident player at the back end of last season. His shoulders were down. No club came in for him kind of early. It was kind of a relatively late deal in the transfer market. I'm sure he was a little bit worried about leaving Leicester City, who would come in for him. So Ange just put an arm around him and instantly increased his game by 50%. Instantly. Same with Van de Ven. Same with Sarr, Basuma, loads of players. So when we talk about the injuries to Spurs, you're actually talking about Postecoglou being able to get more out of Richarlison. Can he get more out of Brennan Johnson? Can he get more goals out of Basuma and Sarr? That is an alternative that not many people are talking about. Right, we're talking about Arsenal now. I've actually enjoyed watching Arsenal play in the last few weeks. I think they've opened up a little bit more. I think Havertz has actually slightly improved. Again, I don't think it's a good signing, but I do think he shifts the ball a little bit quicker. I think he's got a little bit more punch in midfield. Now he's settled into that kind of midfield role and he's not playing forward. Then I think he's got a role to play for this Arsenal side. Is it enough to win them the Premier League as a midfielder? I don't know. I think when Partey, Odegaard and Rice are all playing, that is probably the best midfield in the league. Maybe. Depends about De Bruyne and Rodri's fitness. It's right up there with being the best midfield in the league. They can control games, Arsenal. And they've got this physicality at the back. They've got Ben White, they've got Saliba, Gabriel. And if the big issue, I think, actually at Arsenal is publicity, because I do think the Aaron Ramsdale situation is a little bit noisy, a little bit distracting. And David Raya, if he can just settle down and have a Christmas period, sometimes Christmas period is fantastic for a keeper, fantastic for players that are kind of on the fringes a little bit or not as confident as you'd want them to be, because it's just game after game, game after game. You come out of January, no one's slagged you off in the press. You've won all the games. You know, Arsenal got Brentford, Wolves, Luton, Villa away. That they got a decent result in last season, last minute. You know, those are all very, very winnable games for Arsenal. You have to look at it and think by the middle of December, Arsenal have got both the proven track record of last season of winning loads of games in a row, obviously nearly winning the Premier League title, getting so many points that would have won them the Premier League in a classic kind of Premier League season. And then you think they've added a little bit of quality. You know, the Declan Rice signing, I still think week in, week out, he's getting better. He's carrying the weight of Arsenal on his shoulders. And not in a bad way, because I still think Saliba's been fantastic. I still think Jesus and Saka are fantastic players. It's not all about Declan Rice. But in midfield, where I do think there's been a few issues, a few transitional issues, especially with Partey at the start of the season playing right back and Jorginho not being a very good player in general, then I do think that Declan Rice has been absolutely superb. And he's that kind of Vieira, Yaya Toure kind of midfielder that can drive Arsenal on to winning the Premier League. And finally, Man City. What can I say? I think City haven't been incredible this season, and when a side aren't incredible and still basically top of the Premier League table, the 4-4 draw with Chelsea isn't the worst in the world. When you look at classic top 6 rivals, going to Stamford Bridge and getting a point isn't the worst. And there's a lot of sides that have to come to the Etihad in the business end of the season. City aren't as free flowing as last season, but City only won the treble in, you know, a couple of games. There's one FA Cup final, there's one Champions League final, and there's a few games where you get that marginal win to get a few points ahead of someone in the Premier League title race. I think Guardiola is banking on the likes of Kovacic, the likes of Gvardiol, the likes of Haaland and Alvarez all clicking more so than they currently are in March, in February. So I think it could look a little bit ugly this side of 2024, because I think City are prepared to drop a few points in getting the right system, knowing that 10, 11, 12 games can be won in the business end of the season. The run-in is hard. Liverpool at home, Spurs at home, Villa away, Luton Town away. It's hard. Spurs struggled there. So I think City have got a great opportunity of winning all those games, but Spurs and Liverpool in particular will definitely look at that and think they can take points at City, especially with how City conceded 4 to Chelsea. Gaps between Gvardiol, Ruben Diaz gave away a penalty. Rodri looked at all, way at sea by himself in midfield. That midfield situation has to be resolved in terms of, is it Kovacic, Rodri, Mateus Nunes? I'm not so excited about that. De Bruyne will obviously come back fairly soon as well. John Stones will. But at the moment, if the midfield isn't figured out and it's Foden on the wing, Grealish on the wing, with just Bernardo Silva in midfield with Rodri, and then you play Alvarez and Haaland, I don't think that's going to work in these games against Liverpool and Spurs. And suddenly, that's 6 points. If you lose those games where those other sides have kind of built momentum on you, that's where the frustration would be if you're a City fan. So I'm going to put my sides in order. At 4, I'm going to go Tottenham Hotspur. I actually thought they could go a little bit higher because Maddison and Mickey Venn look so good, and if they'd stayed fit, I think they'll hit them so hard. I think they'll now come 4th. 3rd, I think Arsenal. I still think they'll struggle without a world-class striker. I know Jesus, Martinelli, Saka will all get a lot of goals, but that fear factor, that Erling Haaland factor, the Harry Kane factor, they don't have it, and I still think they miss a lot of chances. That with Havertz, that with Timber's unfortunate injury, that could influence their kind of back line in terms of depth. And look at what happened with Saliba. If Saliba gets injured, or if Declan Rice gets injured, they're back to square one, Arsenal. I guess a lot of sides can say that. I think they're going to come 3rd. Number 2, I think Liverpool will come 2nd. I think they're going to get really close to City. I think they've got the best ability of getting 6 points at City in terms of at the Etihad and against City at Anfield. I think their front line will get them so many goals. World-class players like Salah. And if they can sign someone in midfield in January, even Calvin Phillips could be available. So all sides mentioned, actually. Then suddenly it could be a whole different proposition. But number 1, it has to be City. Ruben Diaz, John Stones, Rodri, Haaland. Do I need to say anything else? It's just want to treble that lineup. And I think the likes of Doku, Nunes are so strong in their supporting cast of the City 11 that I think there's a fantastic opportunity there for City to win 4 in a row. I'm not trying to be biased. I think it's as hard as it has been for many, many years because I think 3 or 4 sides have all got the ability to take points off City, and City have got gaps in the squad. There's no question about it. Gundogan leaving, etc. Laporte leaving. But the proof's in the pudding. Erling Haaland up front, Ruben Diaz at the back. Football's a simple game, and I think City will come top. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll see you very, very soon.